Hey there YouTube, welcome to the first episode of Jay's Beer Reviews. This will be a show where I review a different beer each time, and I'm going to give you my tasting notes. I'm also going to give you an idea of what the style is, a little bit of information about the brewery or the beer itself. For my format, I'll have the first episode with information about the beer, and my second episode will always be the tasting, my notes, and any other information I think is important to give you. I wouldn't give you information without you at least knowing a little bit about me. I'm an award-winning home brewer, and I've been brewing for about 10 years. To say that I've won awards is not a huge deal. There's a lot of award-winning home brewers. But really, I'm just someone who loves tasting beers and loves sharing that experience with others. I also work at a pretty large Chicago chain liquor store that specializes in wine, spirits, and craft beer. Not only do I get to talk to customers, I get to talk to my coworkers as well. So I get a lot of information from them, and I get a lot of information from my customers too, who are pretty well informed. In the end, I'm just someone who loves beer, so I'd love to share my love with you. Without any further ado, let's get into our first beer. This is a beer I've been looking at for a little while, but I've only recently got a chance to try it. And this beer is Off Color Brewing's Troublesome. Troublesome is a Gose style beer. Now, Gose actually falls under the historic beer category if you're entering it in competition. So if I pull up my notes here, I can see that the historic beer category is number 27 in the BJCP's style guidelines. Now, if you're into beer, but you haven't learned too much about styles, the BJCP's style guidelines is a great place to look. It gives you pretty good information about the style. It gives you overall impressions, it gives you possibly ingredients, some historic information, or some really good examples of the style as well. So for a Gose style, I see here that the overall impression is for a highly carbonated, tart and fruity wheat ale with restrained coriander and salt character with very low bitterness. Very refreshing with bright flavors and high attenuation. So high attenuation is a fancy way of saying that all of the fermentable sugars in the beer have been fermented out as much as possible. So for that overall impression, like it says, it's going to be tart, it should be a little fruity, it should be a little bit salty as well. A Gose style usually always has salt added to it. Now that salt, you think when you have something like a Corona, right, they take a little bit of salt, take a little bit of lime, the lime gives a little bit of acidity, and the salt really helps to brighten up a lot of the flavors that are in the beer. Now I don't know how many Coronas you're drinking. Well, I don't know how many Coronas you're drinking. Anyways, so what I get from that is when I drink a Gose, I'm supposed to be drinking a very refreshing wheat beer. It does have salt added to it. Salt really helps brighten up the flavor in the beer. It should also have a bit of tartness. And I know Off Color uses some souring agents to achieve that acidity in the beer. Another thing the BJCP does great with is it'll give you good examples of the style. Not only that, it'll lay it out in order of what they think is the best example. So number one is Anderson Valley Gose. Anderson Valley is another brewery. They make some really great Gose styles. Right now, they just came out their Briny Melon, which is a watermelon Gose. It's perfect for the summer. Really great kind of watermelon thing going on. But we'll get into some flavors in the next video when I actually sample the beer. So whenever I try beer for the first time, I always just take a look at the bottle or the can. I look for things like the ABV, the IBUs, so I know what to expect. I also look for any extra information that they'll give you. So if I take a look over at this one, I see it's got just the name. It's got a very clear, black and white label. This is what Off Color Brewing does with all of their labels pretty much. It's all just black and white. So I like it. It's very clean. It's very eye-catching. When you see them on the shelf, you have, 4 or 5, 6-packs or 4-packs of the beer. It's black and white mixed in with all the other colored, crazy stuff that's going on the shelf. And it really does draw your eye because they're different. Everyone's going to have this, everyone wants to have this crazy picture or super colorful 6-pack holder or, single bottle or whatever. Off Color doesn't do that. They just slap on this black and white label. It's actually very appealing on its own. The one thing I like, or the other thing I like about them is that one of their taglines, it's on all of their case boxes, it says that their beer was made in Chicago in big shiny things. And the thing that's really cool about this bottle is that, as I'm turning it, it's a little mouse, character mouse, that's looking at a fermenting vessel. And that fermenting vessel, the thing that's really cool about it to me is that as you look at it, as you turn the bottle, that vessel is actually pretty shiny on the label. There's no feel that's different or anything. It feels just the same as the rest of the label. But the rest of the label's got the white and the black on it, whereas the tank's got this shiny metallic finish on it. It's goofy, but it's a kind of funny, eye-catching thing. So the picture on it's really cool. It's a very eye-catching design. It also tells you pertinent information about the beer. So it tells me here that it's a Leipzig style Gose. It's 4.3% ABV with an IBU set at 10. So I know it's not going to be very bitter. I know it's pretty light in alcohol as well. The malts that are in it, it says Pilsner malt, wheat malt, flaked wheat, and oats. So the oats are going to give it a little bit of that creamy, chewy character. The wheat and the pills together is just what you would have in a normal kind of wheat-style beer. Then the hops used is Northern Brewer. So with 10 IBUs, they probably just put a little bit of Northern Brewer in at the first boiling edition, and they call it a day. And the other thing that's really cool about this is that it tells you their secret ingredients. And so what they use in here is coriander, lactobacillus, and salt. So the coriander, like I said, is pretty true to style from the BJCP style guidelines. The lactobacillus, they're using this bacteria basically to purposefully infect their beer to create a kind of acidity and a kind of tartness. Sometimes when you drink sour beers, I end up feeling them kind of in the back of my jaw. Kind of locks my jaw up a little bit. That's one of the things I like about sour beers is that it's kind of more of a sensation than anything else. And then the last secret ingredient here is salt, and that salt is put in to add a little bit of brightness to the beer. You think, if you have your eggs in the morning, you got to put a little bit of something in there because the eggs by themselves are fine, but you put a little salt in, really amplifies all the things you're tasting. Then the last thing that I see on this label is a little QR code. So actually, first thing I did is I took out my phone and I just gave it a scan. It brought me straight to Off Color's website. And their website is actually really well done as well. The first thing I noticed about it is that it's got just really high quality pictures on it, which are awesome. It's great stuff. Then when you go to the actual beer page, it's got a lot of information about the beer. I went over to their main page with just information about the brewery. Really cool. It tells you about all the equipment that they have. It tells you about all of the employees that they have working there. So looking on the employee page, it looks like a lot of the people there have already worked in the Chicago beer scene. So they have call-outs like to Goose Island, Two Brothers, some of the two bigger Chicago breweries in the area. I thought it was really cool that they're in the Chicago beer scene. They're friends with a lot of the breweries in the area, and they're on good terms. So it's nice to have competition, but it's also nice to see a kind of camaraderie between the breweries. And then the last thing I want to point out about their website is that it's actually got a listing of a lot of the beers they either are making now or have made in the past. So a lot of times, like when you get these one-off batches from breweries, they don't put a lot of information out on their website. There might be like one page with a little bit of something. But if you're looking for information about some of these specialty beers, a lot of it's going to be like, on Beer Advocate or on Untapped or whatever, and it's just people putting little, one-sentence blurbs about what they thought of the beer. Off Color goes a step ahead, and they have a lot of the beers that they've produced before, and they keep all of the information that they've put up about it. And so it's very chock-packed full of information. So when I went to go look up a little bit about the Troublesome, there was a lot there for me to read. A lot more than I'd say most breweries actually put up. So kudos to Off Color for having an awesome website, and then also for having awesome bottle design. I hope you enjoyed a little bit of information about Off Color Brewing's Troublesome. I want you to join me for my next video where I actually sample the beer and give you my personal descriptors. If you did enjoy the video, please make sure you hit the like button down at the bottom. Leave me a comment if you'd like. You want to suggest some beers, I'd be more than happy to take those suggestions. But please, please, please reach out, okay? And I'll see you in the next video.